What's up YouTube? Jeff back again from highonandroid.com, and today I'm bringing you a video that I've been waiting to do for quite a while. Today we're going to get into the ASUS ZenFone 2 one-on-one for the Budget Smartphone Championship with the Alcatel One Touch Idol 3. So you guys have seen my unboxing videos of both of these phones, and today we're going to get into the actual one-on-one death match between these two budget phones. So I just want to remind you of a few of the specs before we get into it. If you didn't see the unboxing, we got the Alcatel One Touch Idol 3. Here's the box. The Alcatel One Touch Idol 3 is a phone that checks in with a $249 price tag on Amazon. You can see some of the specs here on the box. We got 2 gigabytes of RAM. We're running the Alcatel One Touch Idol 3 has a Snapdragon 615 inside, Qualcomm processor. You got 4G LTE. You got a full HD 5.5-inch screen. Of course, you're running the 13 megapixel shooter, and you also get some stereo speakers on the front of the Alcatel One Touch Idol 3. All of that is running Android 5.0 Lollipop on the inside. And then, of course, we've got the ZenFone 2 right here, the ZenFone 2 box. Some of the specs right here on the side. You can see you've got 4G LTE again, full HD screen. This has got Bluetooth 4.0. It's also got a 13 megapixel shooter, and this one is running an Intel processor on the inside, so not Qualcomm but Intel. And actually you can see right here on the side here, it says right there Intel inside. So we've got the Qualcomm processor of the Idol 3 going one-on-one with the Intel processor that is in the ASUS ZenFone. So I want to get into, of course, after looking at the specs, let's get into the actual real-world usage of these two phones. So I'm going to talk about a few things, go down each category, tell you what I liked, tell you what I didn't like, maybe help you get an idea of which phone is better for you. So this video is probably going to be a little long. I'll drop an outline down in the description. Let's get right into it. So the first thing, let's go back to the boxes. When I buy a new phone, I like to have a nice package. Now, I don't care if you disagree, that's fine. Maybe you don't care about getting nice packaging, but when I buy a phone, I enjoy the unboxing experience. Go check out Lou's channel, Unbox Therapy. That's what it's all about, right? Having a great unboxing experience and enjoying it. Well, one of these phones definitely left a bad taste in my mouth when it came to the unboxing experience, and that's the ASUS ZenFone 2. So if you go back and check out my video on the ZenFone 2 unboxing, you'll see that I commented, this is some pretty cheap packaging, and actually if you slide it out, the little sleeve that was on the phone was not very well sort of put together. And overall, I just felt like it wasn't a very nice box. I like to get a nice box when I unbox my phones. Didn't feel like I got a great experience. The packaging looks and feels a bit cheap. On the other hand, the Idol 3 I thought was packaged a lot more like a traditional smartphone. It felt nicer, more premium. This felt like you were unboxing maybe an iPhone or a Galaxy S6 or an HTC One M9 or an LG G4. In addition, I want to comment on what comes inside the box. So one thing that came inside the box with the Alcatel Idol 3 that was noticeably missing from your ZenFone 2 box were these JBL headphones. So you see right here inside the box, we got the JBL headphones accessories, and that's a good look. It's nice to get a free pair of headphones. I tried these out. They're actually pretty decent. So if you leave your headphones at home or something, you can throw these in your gym bag, throw these in your work bag, you'll have an extra pair on deck. Throw them in your glove compartment, whatever. So in terms of the packaging, I'm going to give the victory to the Alcatel Idol 3. I definitely was feeling the packaging a lot more than the ZenFone 2. So next, let's talk about the next aesthetic when it comes to having a phone, and that's the build quality of the phone. So you can see here the backs of the phone. I got the gray version of the Idol 3, the version that it's offered in, and then I've got the red version of the ASUS ZenFone 2. And overall, you can see that the phones are of pretty close thickness. The Idol 3 is actually a little bit thinner than the ZenFone 2 if you look at up close. And overall, you can also see that you've got some metal around the sides here on the ZenFone 2, around the sides. The back is plastic, but it feels like a nice brushed aluminum and looks like a nice brushed aluminum on the back of the Idol 3 with this actual metal around the sides and the bottom. On the other hand, if you take a look at the ZenFone 2, the ZenFone 2 actually doesn't have any metal on it at all. So if you look here, the only metal that you see is on the back buttons here. So the ZenFone 2 feels very plasticky, especially the back. I can definitely tell it's plastic. It has a removable back on it. But overall, the build, I didn't love the build of the Zenfone 2. It feels okay in the hand. It's got a nice curve to it, which definitely helps you hold it, but it wasn't my favorite build smartphone that I've ever used, and it definitely feels a little cheaper. But of course, this is a $299 smartphone. You know, this is the 4GB version here that you've got a, $300 price tag. So what are you gonna do? That's not bad at all. So 4GB of RAM for 300 bucks. I can let the build slide, but when it comes to the build, I got to give the Idol 3 the overall advantage in the build. Now, when we're talking about the build, that's another thing that I want to mention, and that's one thing that I didn't like about both of these phones, is that the power button is in a super weird spot on both phones. If you look at the Zenfone 2, the power button is right here at the top center of the phone. This is a super awkward place to put the power button, and I really have no idea why Asus decided to do this, other than the fact that they just wanted to be different and cool or something. I don't know, but it's actually really annoying to have the power button right there in the center. I kept struggling to press it. Also, it's not very tactile, so you have to try hard to find it and press it down enough to turn on the phone. So that's one thing I don't like about the Zenfone 2. And also, the volume buttons are on the back, like the G4, but the power button's on the top. So that's super weird, and because I've been using the G4 as well, I kept trying to find the power button back here, and I never did. On the Idol 3, I also don't like where the power button's located. If I'm holding the phone this way, it's on my top left if it's facing you, so the power button is right there on the top left corner, which is also a weird place for a power button. Why not put it in the top on the center, on the left in the center, on the right below the volume rocker. The volume rocker's on the right side. I kind of understand why they did this, and that's because of the special feature of the Idol 3, which is if you rotate the phone upside down, it'll actually completely flip itself. So you can see right there, it completely flips itself around. And then the power button is now on the bottom in a place where you can easily reach it. So I think the reason that the power button was put in this particular location right here is so that when you use the reversible feature, that the power button is still somewhere you can easily reach it. But I still found this to be an annoying place for the power button. I'd rather have it right below the volume rocker, or, but I understand why they made that choice in this particular case. So the button placement for the power button, I'm not a big fan of either of the button placements for these phones. I kept reaching for them in places that they actually weren't. All right, so let's continue going with the outward-facing things that you can see from the outside of the phone, the speaker placement and the speaker quality. So if you take a look, the Asus Zenfone 2 has its speaker grill on the back here, and even though the cutout actually looks pretty large, the Zenfone 2 speaker is quite small. If you take a look at some other breakdowns, some people took this phone apart, the speaker itself is not really that large, and it actually shows when you listen to media. So this phone does not get super loud, and also if you're holding this phone in landscape like this, you're probably going to cover up the speaker when you go to listen to some media, which is really annoying. If you're watching a YouTube video or whatever, you don't want to cover up your speaker because then you're going to muffle the sound. So the Asus Zenfone 2, I didn't love the speaker. On the other hand, the Alcatel Idol 3, if you take a look, you've got stereo speakers, as I mentioned. They're right here above the chin of the phone on the bottom and at the top of the phone here. So the crown and the chin of the phone have these stereo speakers, and the stereo speakers actually sound phenomenal. Now, it's pretty impossible to convey how loud the speakers are via video. I've tried it before. Perhaps I'll upload some, it's tough to actually get that through the video. So I can tell you for sure that these front-facing speakers, as usual, they're much louder than the rear speaker here on the Zenfone 2. So if you're into listening to music with your phone speakers, which a lot of people use headphones, which in that case, the Zenfone 2 also lags behind because the Idol 3 has headphones included, JBL headphones in fact. But these are going to be better for watching videos and listening to music if you're just using your phone. The speakers on the front is definitely a good look. All right, so we've covered the build then, we've covered the speakers. What else is important when you're using your phone? Well, the next thing that people always want to ask about is the camera. So obviously, on a phone, that costs $249 for the Idol 3 or $300 for the Asus Zenfone 2, you can't expect to get the best camera in the world because normally when you build a budget smartphone, the camera is the expensive, research and development that the company's not going to spend when they're putting in a budget smartphone. Both of them have 13 megapixel shooters, But in my experience, I found the Idol 3 actually shoots much better indoor low light shots. So if you're taking these cameras outside, both of them have 13 megapixel shooters with a flash. If you're taking them outside and you have good light, or if you have good lighting inside, like here I have my studio lights, both of them perform super well in good light situations. They're actually pretty nice, and you can get crisp shots that rival maybe a Note 4. You're not going to get shots that rival the G4 or the S6. That's just never going to happen with these phones. They're also more than half the price, right? So, but you definitely want the Idol 3 if you take a lot of indoor shots. This one has a lot brighter indoor shots. If you go check out my Instagram page, I took several photos with each of these phones. You can compare some of the quality in terms of, is it well lit? How bright are the shots for indoor versus outdoor shots. I'll post up a few more shots as well that I took indoor yesterday, just comparing these two phones, so you can see sort of what the difference is between the two. One other thing I will mention about the camera, the Zenfone 2, it tends to over sharpen images a lot, especially when you take it outside with good lighting. It will really over sharpen things that weren't necessarily that sharp when you took the picture. So that's another thing to keep in mind. That might not bother you because most people aren't zooming in on an actual smartphone taken picture, but that's something to keep in mind. The Idol 3 did a better job of keeping the image sort of true to its original focus. It doesn't tend to over sharpen too much from what I found, and also has better low light performance in my experience. All right, sorry about that, YouTube. We're back. I got a quick call I had to take, so let's get back into talking about the Zenfone 2 versus the Idol 3. So what I was talking about before we got out of there, was the Idol 3 is pretty much one in every category I've discussed so far. It's one in the camera, it's one in the audio quality, it's one in the build quality. What is the Zenfone 2 best at? You might say, Jeff, is this phone even worth anything? Should I get it? Well, absolutely. If you need a really fast phone, this is the phone to get. This phone is going to open up your apps super quick. It opens up anything super quick. Look at that. Look how fast I can open up all of these apps. It doesn't even skip a beat. In fact, with the 4 gigabytes of RAM, I've found that the Zenfone 2 occasionally has better performance in terms of opening up my apps quickly, opening up the camera, open up anything I want, open up YouTube. I can open up as many apps as I want to use on a daily basis with the Zenfone 2, and I have absolutely no problems opening up my apps. I'm never going to have an issue where I'm going to get lag from opening up too many apps. The 4 gigabytes of RAM is fantastic. And in addition to that, the Asus Zenfone 2 had much better benchmarks than the Idol 3. So really quickly, I'll show you guys here. Let me pull up on my gallery app. I took the Antutu benchmarks, screenshots on both phones. So I'll show you guys really quickly the two benchmarks. So let me go to the gallery. So here I've got the benchmark for the Asus Zenfone 2, 47,496, which puts it right on par with the Galaxy Note 4 and the OnePlus One. So if you see, the Galaxy Note 4 is actually right above that on the Antutu benchmark scale. And if you take a look here, the gallery app for my Alcatel Idol 3, let me just open up the benchmarks. So here's the benchmarks for the Idol 3. For the Idol 3, you see 31,285, which puts it just below the LG G3. And that's between the HTC One, the original HTC One M7, and the LG G3. So actually, you can see that in terms of benchmark performance, the Asus Zenfone 2 is actually way above, and actually in real-world performance in terms of opening up apps, in terms of doing anything that you want to do, I've actually found the Zenfone to be much faster. I also put it through a gaming test with one of my favorite games, which is One More Line. So if you see here, I've got One More Line. This is a really graphics-intensive game that requires you to hold and sort of swing through. I'm definitely going to die doing this on the other side of the camera. But this is one of my favorite Android games. If you want to go pick this up, try it out. But this is a great game for testing graphics performance because the graphics need to be super fluid. And on the Asus Zenfone 2, I found them to be fantastic. Also, the real-world performance in terms of actually going through and computing, sort of having multiple apps, and then also doing any sort of work operations with this, like multitasking, email while you're using your web browser, switching back and forth. This phone is ideal for that. So if you're using it as a work phone more than a personal phone, I would say go with the ZenFone 2 because it's definitely a beast when it comes to performance. It's also a beast when it comes to gaming. There's no problems with the Intel chip at all. I put it through a series of gaming tests, including One More Line, Goat Simulator, a couple of other really graphic intensive games that I like to play. I'll post a link down in the description to some of them. You guys want to try and test them out. So in terms of benchmarks and real world performance, I'd say the ZenFone 2 is the winner when it comes to performance and speed. Now, what about the screen quality? So one thing I like to test is the brightness on the phone. So let's test, I'll show you guys really quick. I think this is something you can probably actually see. So let me turn the brightness down a little bit here. Turn the brightness up rather. So let me turn the brightness on the ZenFone 2 as well as the Idol 3, and let's take a look at how bright the screens are. So if we turn the brightness off auto, for both, you can sort of see here, it might be difficult to see because I've got different backgrounds on each, but the Idol 3 is quite a bit brighter. I've tried them both in the Arizona sun, and the Idol 3 is a lot easier to see in the middle of daylight. So these are on full brightness for both. The Idol 3 is actually a lot brighter. Might be hard to tell because I've got the color background here. But the Idol 3 is actually quite a bit brighter, and that is really nice if you live in somewhere that's super bright like Arizona, like I do. You're going to want to have that extra brightness on your screen. All right, so screen brightness, I would give that win to the Idol 3. The next thing I want to talk about, of course, is the software. So obviously you want to have your software to a way that sort of makes it easy for you to use it every day. Which of these two phones is going to be the best if you're using it every day? Which software are you going to like? Which launcher are you going to like? Well, I use both of these phones and I use both of the launchers. I use the Zen UI launcher, which I'm still using on here. I've got both of the regular launchers on here. And I'm okay with the Zen UI. It's kind of more colorful, and you know, it's more colorful and sort of playful than Western UIs. You know, Westerners kind of like. It's probably a big hit in Asia. They seem to like the more colorful UIs. But main thing I don't like about this one is it came with so much bloatware, which you can sort of disable, but it's annoying. It came with like 30 apps that were installed with the UI originally, so that's annoying. And also, in overall, again, it's not terrible. It's just I don't necessarily like the color choices. Also, they make you keep 3 rows here of icons in the quick settings, and you can't actually get less than that. You can change them, but you can't get less. So I'd appreciate to have the option to just maybe have 1 row. That'd be a lot nicer. Overall, though, it's not a huge deal. The Zen UI is nice. Once you disable the bloatware, it's really not terrible. Scrolling is smooth. Everything is pretty smooth with the UI. The settings, there's kind of a lot of features on this phone to play with. So you can actually change. There's some themes. So Asus has some themes in here that you can play with. So if you want to theme up your phone and make it yours, you can definitely do that with the Zen UI. So it's really not a problem. When it comes to the Idol 3 and its UI, I found that this one is a little bit more simplistic and offers features in the places that I want them. By which I mean, you know, on the lock screen here, you can see you've got some options to go to calculator, music, your camera, to launch to your launcher, right into your launcher, and to contacts. I like that feature. That's a feature that I'm going to use, and it's a feature I have used. And then also, the Idol 3 launcher is just a little more simple. It looks more like sort of Nova or something stock Android that you're used to. I'm just more of a stock Android guy. You can see if you scroll down, sort of the stock Android Lollipop quick settings here. You don't have all those rows. You have the standard ones. You got your brightness. You go into settings, and it looks just like the Lollipop settings, you know, on your Nexus 6. And so I'm more of a stock Android kind of guy, and for that reason, I prefer the Idol 3's launcher. I think at the end of the day, I like this launcher better because it's more of a stock Android type experience. So overall, this one I would say more of my preference, but both of the launchers are smooth, and I also ran Nova on both of these too after a while, and that made the experience, you know, even better. So you can throw a custom launcher on here, no problem, and you'll be in good shape. So overall, both of these phones are solid for the value. You got a decent UI on both. They're fairly smooth. You can throw a custom launcher on here like Nova. They're both going to run like a dream. At the end of the day, you know, which one of these should you get? One other thing I want to point out about the Asus ZenFone is you see you have the double tap to wake, but also you don't have illuminated buttons down here. So you have these buttons here just like you have on your Galaxy S6, right? Capacitive buttons, but they're not illuminated, which is annoying in the dark. On the Idol 3, you have on-screen buttons, which I actually prefer. So you've got the on-screen buttons, you can get to your Google Now, etc. So which of these two phones should you buy? That's the question that we're at right now. Well, my last test that I ran that I like to run with budget phones is I like to do the I like to do the flagship deficit test. So what I did is I took my took my LG G4, which I've been using because I've got the review on this coming up, and I used this for one day, and then I used the Zenfone 2 for a day, then I used this for another day, and then I used the Idol 3 the next day. And the question was, which one felt like a bigger deficit? Was it worse going from this to this, the Zenfone 2, or was it worse going from the G4 to using the Idol 3? And I can tell you, from my personal preference, it was definitely worse going from the G4 to the Zenfone 2 than from the G4 to the Idol 3. Some of my reasoning. This thing has more of a stock Android experience, which I prefer. The camera is better in low light, so I wasn't as frustrated with the camera because the G4 has an amazing camera. This phone has good speakers, so I can listen to media, so that was actually an even improvement over the G4. This phone is fast enough to be usable, at all times, and if you're not using a billion apps, it's plenty fast with the 2 gigs of RAM. I can still do gaming. Also, on this phone, the build is kind of nice, so I didn't feel like I had a super cheap phone around. It's also nice and thin, so you can see it's actually thinner than the G4 if you have the quick circle case on, which I have now. Overall, I felt like because I like to listen to, watch YouTube videos and listen to music, this was a better overall phone. Coming from the G4 to this, I didn't feel like I was hampered. I could still take decent pictures, and I could still listen to media, and I could still have a nice, beautiful screen. There's nothing wrong with the Zenfone 2. Don't let me dissuade you from it, but the low light camera quality, not as good. Speakers on the back, I don't love. The Zenfone 2 UI, not terrible, right? The Zen UI is not bad, but it's not really my style. You got a lot of extra features on top that I don't necessarily use, a lot of theming features. And this power button on the top got on my nerves to no end. So I got to be honest, that really, really bothered me. And that was one of the reasons also I wish it had been on the back. So going from the G4 to this got pretty annoying. So to sum it up, I would say that the Zenfone 2, great buy if you want to get this for work. Definitely will multitask, do everything you want, give you a good experience for $299. You can also get the cheaper version for $199. I'll drop a link down in the description. You can check them both out at Amazon. The Idol 3 at $249 is a great buy if you want an all-around phone that'll do your media, that's going to do everything you want on your phone with no problem. Give you a great media experience with the speakers. Takes pretty good pictures even in decently low light inside. And overall, the nice, packaging, the whole experience was overall I found to be a better experience. So I'm going to drop the link to the Idol 3 and both versions of the Zenfone 2 down in the description. Check them out. If you guys have any questions, please let me know so I can answer them. Otherwise, this has been my review and comparison of both phones. It's definitely a long video. I did both reviews and sort of compared them one to the other in the same video of the Zenfone 2 versus the Idol 3. I've got some big stuff coming up, including the LG G4 full review. Got a lot of good stuff on that. That one's going to be a little more artsy. I've shot a couple different clips, so a little more than me just sitting here. But I kind of like doing the video reviews this way because I give you my real experience. I've also got the launch of my website coming up with an all-new logo for the channel. So we're going to be doing it big. We're going to get the brand going, finally have a logo, make this thing kind of official. So I appreciate everyone who subscribed early on. We're going to be taking this thing to the next level, and that's how we do it around here. So please follow me on social media at Twitter and on Google+. Those links are also in the description. In addition, please subscribe if you haven't already and you like the content. Give me the thumbs up, or if I can do something better, give me the thumbs down and let me know down in the comments. I'm always trying to improve my videos. I definitely appreciate you guys watching. And please check out news.hionandroid.com for more great Android news. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for checking it out.